Welcome to Loud Librarians Lead with Laura Kelly. I am here today with Kara Carrion, the Assistant Library Director and Community Service Librarian from the K.O. Lee Aberdeen Public Library. And she is joining me to share her knowledge and expertise related to building successful partnerships. Welcome, Kara.
Hi, so great to be here. Thank you.
Well, we're so glad you could join us. And we just really want to talk to librarians across the state. What does a community service librarian do? Tell us about your job.
A lot of librarians probably do many aspects of my job in their job. A community services librarian typically will create programs for adults. So it's like 18 and over. I always say 18 to 109. And they also are usually the librarian who does all the marketing, publicity, and really is out into the community, fostering partnerships and relationships, and is also that librarian where the community knows, hey, I want something to happen, or I really love what something is going on at the library. They're the person that they talk to because they're the ones that they see a lot. This is the librarian that is usually kind of doing outreach and works with the volunteers. And so many of you are already doing many parts of a community services type of a position.
We might have a different title in every library we go to. A lot of these different types of job duties are included in that title. Absolutely. So
Yeah.
when you are looking at this role, what are some of your favorite parts of being a community service librarian?
My favorite part is talking to people in the community. As people probably through the state know, I'm a little chatty. But I love talking to the general public. I love it when people come to our programs. I love to hear their stories. I love to hear how much they love their library. I also like to hear when they don't like us, because there's always those moments when maybe we failed them or maybe that's bad communication. But I like to hear that. I want to know what's going on. But my second favorite, I think, is really all the different programs and all the wonderful people I've met throughout the state and kind of the region in developing programs for our library. It brought me, really into the community. I'm not originally from Aberdeen. And so I felt like I was kind of drop kicked in, just like, okay, here you go. Here's that job. Really getting to know the community through our programs. It just was, they were so welcoming and so wonderful. And, one meeting led to another meeting and, one program led to another. And so that's my favorite part. I love creating the marketing and publicity materials. And so I'm really lucky that I've been able to find different types of programs, applications, things like that help me. But creating, even if it's posters or videos, and I will say, because I have been in this position for quite a long time, it used to be that, if you had publisher, you had really something going on that nobody else had, and that really dated me right there, I know. And now it's creating videos for TikTok and increasing our Snapchat and all our social media. It's so exciting. It's been so creative, and I absolutely love that aspect. And I know some people that is a challenge. And so anytime I can give somebody a little insight and some help, I love to share and do that too. So
we know how important it is to be getting that information out to our patrons. We can have the best programming in our library, but if they don't know about it, we aren't marketing our library well, we're not getting those patrons in the door to experience all the great things that we are working on. So such an important piece.
And it's really one of the first things that gets blamed for lack of program attendance. And I think probably people out there could just go, oh yeah, like that's the first place I feel a library board or even your coworkers would be like, well, did they even know about this? Did you get the word out? It's wonderful to be living in the information age, but yet we all know the drawbacks of that because there's just so much clutter out there. There is so much information, and you're fighting everybody else for that 3 seconds on social media for people to make that decision to swipe or to actually click. And 3 seconds, it's really hard. It's constantly changing. And especially this last couple of years, what people expect from us digitally, on social media is a lot more, and it takes longer to create it.
Right. And just knowing that that's an important place to put your time and energy into that marketing piece, just as much as we do into planning the program, is getting that information out there. And speaking of that, we know, us librarians know, that outreach is really important and that we need to be looking into those relationships outside of our library and in our communities to build our library stronger, as well as our communities. So where does a librarian, like you said, sometimes you're coming new into a community, where do you start?
When I first kind of began my career in the library world, libraries were changing. They were the community centers. They were not the shush places. We wanted kids to laugh and run through the library once in a while. And we were that third space that people were talking about. So it was becoming a little more lively, and programming was of a priority. So I was really lucky. I wouldn't be sitting here today if that didn't happen. But what I realized was I had to go out to the library to bring people in. And once they saw us, because we are always, even today, shaking that old stereotype that we're just a warehouse of books. And I can't believe in this day and age, but we still have that stereotype. When people talk about that, I always think, you haven't been to a library very often, have you? Or recently. So it's like, come in. So I always say, go out to bring them in, and it really will work. It worked for me 20 some years ago. And this is what we're doing now too, because in the last couple of years, people have gotten out of the habit of coming into the library. They've kind of forgotten all that it has to offer. And many libraries do have a digital, 24/7 services, but they have a lot more in their actual physical building too. I know a lot of times libraries, they partner with other like humanity-based entities, whether it's a museum, an art gallery, or the Arts Council, or, a theater group. Everyone's got the same probably audience that comes to those types of programs or supports those entities in your community, because it's always great to have those strong, I call them bread and butter people. They're always there for you. And
right. You want to keep those relationships, but make new ones, right? Yeah.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So to go out into places that people are not going to think that you're going to be there, it's kind of a surprise. And that surprise kind of stays in their head. Hey, we went to the hockey game the other night and it was library card night, or, at one time it was one of our first All Aberdeen reads. And we partnered with at the time, we had a lot of horse racing here in Aberdeen. And we partnered with that group. Our book was Seabiscuit, and they gave everybody a copy. The first 400 people got a copy of Seabiscuit, and everybody was like, the library is here. There were people in our county, in our town, who had never thought about the library before. So it was kind of that unexpected place. So they also publicized to all of their people, and we kind of got on their radar. That is a really big aspect of not just an audience, but also that marketing, and especially with social media. So they're sharing it with all their people. That can really increase traffic a lot.
I think that's a really important part to think of, who are you missing in your community, right? And in what ways can you participate in events? Like you said, I love it. That would surprise someone that the library is here, and yet bringing awareness to something unique like horse racing in your community too. So you may bring some of the people who visit the library and say, go check this event out. And so it shares it both ways. And that's what we're really looking for in these partnerships, is to help each other out.
We're a city library, and, of course we partner with Parks and Rec. A lot of libraries, they partner with Parks and Rec, and that is great, because they have usually a very strong audience. But one thing that we had noticed, we have a wonderful diversity council here in Aberdeen, and we struggle with diversity because we're not as diverse as some other communities, and yet it's there, and we want people to feel welcome, but it's so easy for everyone to not feel a part of it. Our police department had a really great committee. They were on the ground with a lot of newly immigrated people into our community. And there's this group of people who wanted to help, but how do you connect them? I always feel when you come together, for a meal or some sort of an event, that breaks down a lot of barriers. If we can, break bread together, we all kind of share what we have in common. rather than our differences. We got together with the Diversity Council and a committee with the police department, and we had a community meet and greet with our Somalian community here in town. The Somalian ladies made food, and so there was a lot of ethnic food. We also had music, and we decided that they needed to decide when it worked for them because they also had different work schedules. So it was on a holiday for them that would be like their Christmas. So it was like on a Friday evening when the library was closed, but we did it anyway. We opened everything up, and I mean, we had like 400 to 500 people coming through here. And it wasn't just all Somalians or all just, native Aberdonians. It was a great mix of people. And it also gave the police department this avenue to not be, always coming in for a crime situation. Is they're here to help the public. And so it was it's one of my favorite partnerships that we ever had. And of course, we did it right before COVID. And so we're hoping to do it again.
It's so great that your library was able to accommodate different schedules. And sometimes you have to go outside of what you normally do to make those situations work. And so I'm so excited for you. That's an amazing event. Well, you mentioned one of your favorite events. Do you have any other favorite past collaborations that you would just like to share today?
Like I've warned you, I could talk for a week about library programming and partnerships and things like that. One thing that we did, and it was definitely before we had our new building. I know we've been in here for 5 years, but to us, it's still that new building. We had a library that constricted what we did. It was really difficult. And that was really important too, why we would go out of the library to have programs and partner because our building held us back. One that we had beautiful art galleries in town, of course, one at NSU and at PC, but we also had several art galleries in our downtown area. And I noticed that some of the people who'd come to our programs, they would always ask me about those downtown art galleries, but I think they were a little scared to go. The museum, the Arts Council, we were like, how do we do this? And we decided to have a gallery crawl. It was almost like a progressive meal as well. So there would be chefs or however they want it catered, or some of them did it themselves. We rented a school bus. So the library had some money to rent a school bus, and we sold tickets. It kind of kicked off our fall season, and we would go from one gallery to the next. We usually have 3 or 4 galleries. And at the last one, of course, is where you had dessert. So that was always everyone's favorite. But it was packed, and we could get 60 people through. And it was one of the funnest programs, and it got us all out of our own buildings, but it really gave a highlight to our community of the wonderful artists in town. Some were professionals, some were, amateurs, and it really also got some of those people who were a little scared to go downtown by themselves, weren't really sure what to do in a gallery, and it became a date night thing or a girls' night out thing, and we did it for many, many years. We only actually came to the library once to showcase our Ashford collection, and that was really nice too. And we would always go to the museum for a new exhibit.
I'm thinking about working with all those different entities to just create this beautiful event. Thank you so much for sharing that experience. And Kara, what is it that you hope librarians will take away from this interview today?
What I hope that they come away with today is to be brave and to just go out there and ask all of these different places in their community. And maybe they think they know everybody in the community, but you're going to know them on a different level when you partner with them, and just say, why not? Why not you? And to also understand that it is very difficult. I know a lot of library boards and even, and maybe even directors, they're all about the numbers. They're all about those attendance numbers. And I understand that because that's kind of how our world works. But sometimes how you measure your success is not always about the numbers. Sometimes it's about that partnership. It's getting the word out. And I mean, we kind of learned that too with everything kind of going virtual, like how many views did you have and how long was it 3 seconds or 6 seconds they were there? Your success isn't always by how many people were in the seats that night. I always look at everything we do, and I say we because the children's staff, the youth services, they do the same thing. After every program, it's like, okay, so what went really well? Okay, so maybe we packed it in. We had 30 or 50, whatever packed in means to you. Maybe we did, but it took like 100 hours of staff hours, and we want to kill each other right now. And, maybe that is not a program we really want. That maybe wasn't so successful. So we reevaluate everything, not to worry about the success or failure of always the numbers. And I think that is one of the most important things to think about, is to be brave and try it. That is success right there, not at the very end, who showed up.
Thank you so much for leaving us with that thought. And we forget how, even though that may be a smaller number, if it forms a deeper relationship with our patrons and they see the library in a different light, that we've, accomplished our goal in that sense too, as well as the other organizations that we are pairing with, bringing awareness to them. So
right, you're elevating your community, you're rising them up, and that's really important. Another takeaway that I would like for people to know is that you don't have to be an expert. In fact, I never feel like an expert at anything. But your experiences are valuable, and they're really valuable to other librarians. How I learned was just having conversations with other librarians and asking them questions like, how'd you do this? Or how'd it go? And you kind of build up that network. As all of us in South Dakota, when we share our experiences, you're helping that other person with their next outreach, their next program, how to do publicity. And one really great way is to even reach out a little further. I've had great experiences with WebJunction. They're amazing to work with. And how they came to me was I happened to be watching a webinar, and I made a few comments, where they say, oh, in the chat, just go ahead and make some comments. And they're like, hey, will you do one about your partnerships or what you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm not an expert. And they're like, no, you've done this, and that means you just have experience, and that experience is valuable. So I would encourage anybody here in the state of South Dakota to reach out to WebJunction and share your experiences, and you'll learn so much more, because I also got a lot of people giving me advice or just saying, hey, this was my experience, and it's invaluable. So not only reaching out into your community with different partnerships, but also your librarians, because librarians love to share. We love to share. We love to share our experiences. So please reach out and connect.
Yes. Well, before we leave today, we have to talk about some books. So I would love to know, what would you recommend for our teens?
So teens, at one point in my career here, I was the teen coordinator, the young adult coordinator. Back in the day when they said, there's this demographic we're not serving, they're called young adults. Here you go. They're one of my favorite groups of people. I love them. One of my all-time favorites, and actually a lot of adults love this book, is The Book Thief. I still love that book so much. It was the first book I read that really made me think about World War II in a very different way, thinking of the people who were there, surrounded with something that they didn't believe in, and they still had to remain true to themselves. That is one of my favorite all-time books. Also, Where the Forest Meets the Stars. That is one of my favorite books as well. It's just magical, and it has a lot of themes in it that I think kids and adults actually can really.
Yeah, I often find in that teen category that they're reading what we're reading. So it's great that we can have them on our shelves in either section.
Exactly.
What about for adult recommendations?
Lately, what I've read, I am not so much a science fiction reader unless I'm made to do it. I do facilitate 2 of our book clubs, and so if they pick something, I'll read it. And this book, actually a friend of mine, and it's called Clara and the Sun. She actually recommended it, and I thought, well, she's never really wrong. And it was one of the best books I've ever read. It's the quality of writing. It's just so smooth. It's a wonderful story. The quality of writing, I could not put this book down, and I also listened to it as well. And it's really about Clara. She's a bot, and this is where the world has come to the point where we can purchase a bot to be a companion for our children. There's a lot of themes in that one, and it's great for discussion. It's a really good book.
I love it when you read something you're not expecting to like. You look at it with a little different eye, and when it surprises you, it's just the best. Is there anything else that you wanted to share?
So, two other books that I would recommend right now are The People We Keep. That is a really great book. And I think that also could be read by high school students. It's really about a book that as you go through your life, it's those people who stay with you no matter what, and how other people kind of come and go through different parts of your life and how valuable they are as well. So it's a really great discussion book. And also one of my very, very favorites is How the Penguins Saved Veronica. It's a British book, but it's amazing. And people from their 20s through their 90s seem to love this book. It's about kind of like saving the world, but saving yourself as well. I love that book.
Thank you, Kara, for sharing your book recommendations with us today and taking the time to visit with librarians and talk about our partnerships. Really enjoy having these conversations, and thank you for coming.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And it's always fun to talk about the library. That's one of my favorite things to do. I'm very passionate about it. So thank you.
And remember, librarians are not buns and shushing anymore. Bye, South Dakota librarians.